Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I'm one of your hosts, Zach, and joining me as always is Aaron Capo.
Hello.
And it is, as we are recording this, Groundhog Day. I don't know if you caught what old Punxsutawney Phil said about the weather.
I did not. What time of day does that happen?
It happens in the morning.
Well, so it probably already happened, right?
Yeah, it already happened. He did see his shadow, which I believe means 6 more weeks of winter.
Oof. You hate to see that.
Yeah. Well, I last year, he was like early spring, and he was bang on because it was like spring, almost summer by like mid-February. But this year, I was a little bit hoping that he would say early spring because it's been like a little bit warm. At least for Midwestern winter for the last like week or so. But not to be. It's going to be more winter.
Here's some statistics I just looked up, Zach.
Okay.
In the last decade, Punxsutawney Phil's predictions have been correct 30% of the time. In the last 20 years, his predictions have been correct 40% of the time.
So he's getting worse at it, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Seems like it.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. Well... I guess if you predict a lot of stuff, eventually you're going to be wrong. But you might also be right. So.
Oh, speaking of, I wanted to make a correction because we've had a lot of information about the Switch 2 coming out, and I did a lot of predictions about what that extra button on, like the extra trigger was on the back of the Joy-Con. But now it's pretty confirmed that that is the thing you press to dislocate the Joy-Con from the Switch. So it's not an extra input, which makes sense because there are tiny little buttons on current Joy-Cons that you press to slide out. So it's not like there's not going to be 3 triggers.
I was playing something on Switch recently, and I had the Joy-Con separated, and I had those little like slide-on rails that make them a little larger, you know?
Yeah.
And one of the frustrations with those is there's that little gray piece that like locks it in place, and you have to remember to like pull that out in order to get it off again. I hope that whole process is made much more simple by the fact that it's just like, you know, a magnet that you're basically doing to put it on the Switch and to put it on those little rails that I guess you'll put down on the table and use it like a mouse. But
April can't come soon enough for the winter, but also because I really want to see that direct where they talk more about the Switch 2.
I know. It is very exciting times to have like a new Nintendo console coming very soon. And
have we talked about this? Do you think you will go to a midnight launch for this? Because famously, we've talked about this on the podcast. You and I went to the midnight launch for the Switch. But I don't know if I would do it. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it for the Switch 2 or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I do want to pre-order. As we talked about, I got lucky last time around where I didn't actually pre-order, but we knew a guy that worked at Best Buy where you had pre-ordered, and we knew they were going to have more than enough to cover, you know, the pre-orders and then some. And so I just went with you and happened to be able to get one even though I hadn't pre-ordered. I think I do want to pre-order, but if you pre-order, then you can go on your own time. You don't have to be there at the midnight launch if you don't want to be. So I don't know. I think maybe I would pre-order and just go pick it up the next day. I don't know if I would necessarily.
I think it also depends on what day of the week they're going to do it. Because if they're going to do it on like a Friday, that increases my chances of wanting to do it because then you don't have to go to work.
I was going to say, if I didn't have to work the next day, I probably would go pick it up at the midnight launch because that would be more fun. But if it's like a weekday where I have to be at work the next day or something like that, I'm definitely just going to go to work and then pick it up at some point, and it'll be fine. But I will try to pre-order. I don't think I've ever pre-ordered a console before.
Yeah, hopefully the rumor is that the reason it's kind of taking a long time is because they're building stock up because they don't want to have shortages. A scarcity. Yeah. So hopefully it will not be terrible, as most pre-orders are when things go live for anything, for like even concert tickets or any sort of thing online. Hopefully it won't be a giant disaster where like
you can't get one for months on end.
The site keeps crashing right when it goes live.
Yeah. I mean, we'll
see, I guess.
We did just go through like a significantly terrible version of that with these last consoles with like the Xbox and the PlayStation 5. So we do have sort of bad memories and nightmares of that whole situation. So hopefully they have fixed it so that is not the case this time. But
we will see.
Let's talk about some games. First up, Worlds Part 2, the big No Man's Sky update, is out. It is live now. I have not jumped in to actually look at it and play it, but they added a whole bunch of stuff. This is much bigger than the Worlds Part 1 update.
Remind me what Worlds Part 1 was? Was it just... I know there was like different water physics they did.
Yeah, they updated water, and there was a good amount of stuff in that one, but this one, Worlds Part 2, is much bigger. And there is a new expedition coming as well, but I have not really looked into that one. I do want to play it though. So I will probably, once the expedition goes live, which I don't believe it is yet as of this recording. So, but once it is, I'll probably jump in and try to check it out. But they've added a whole bunch of stuff. They added gas giant planets that you can go to and actually land on. And there's like new terrain, new lighting. They've really overhauled the lighting. I think that was like a major point they had in the video showcasing Worlds Part 2. But new solar systems as well. And deep oceans. The oceans looks really crazy. So in the past, you could like maybe go down in the water like a couple 100 feet maybe. In this, you can go miles. And they have entire planets that are just water. And so they've redone the like exocraft for going underwater so that you can build a platform like on the surface of the water and then go down. I think in the past you had to be underwater and on the ground to build the platform to get your exocraft. And now I think you can do it on the surface of the water. But they've also revamped like swimming and getting around in the water. So it's supposed to, they've really made an emphasis on like deep sea exploration. And it does look really cool what they showed, especially with like the new lighting overhaul that they've done. But
I saw a quote that said this has led to the generation of like 1 trillion more worlds in their system.
Yeah, they've added a whole bunch of stuff. Because they obviously have gas giants now and they have water planets now. So they've had to add a whole bunch of stuff. So there's a lot more stuff to explore. You're likely to encounter a lot more different things. Like they have new types of ruins that you can find on planets as well that are like supposed to be like some sort of ancient civilization has left these ruins around. And so you can find those. And you can start crafting that as well. So that's like a new thing that you'll be able to craft if you like build some sort of settlement, which is cool. But they also added like new deep sea creatures, and they made the water even more dynamic this time around from the update last time. But new story stuff as well. And there's also like new fishing stuff. So they added fishing here recently with one of the more recent updates, and so they have expanded on that feature to make it more fun and interesting to do. The next expedition that they're adding here soon, I think, is going to have like a really crazy looking living ship as one of the rewards. They showed that in...
Oh yeah, they did. It has like a little tail.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy looking, so I'm pretty excited to get that. But even just like in the video that they have, we linked to there's like a little video that Sean Murray tweeted, and there's like a list of new stuff that's coming in this update or is out in this update. But there's like this sort of snowy planet that is like very mountainous, and you can see just how different the terrain looks. Whereas in the past you might have some hills and stuff like that, but it seems like they've really made it more mountainous in some regions. But There's supposed to be new biomes and weather hazards and stuff like that. So we could basically, if we wanted to deep dive, spend an entire episode just talking about all the stuff they added in this update. That's how big it is and how much there is to it.
Now, I didn't watch this full thing, but you did say before we started recording that there was a little bit of Light No Fire. Is it Light No Fire or Light No Fires?
I think it's just Light No Fire. There
was a little bit of Light No Fire update in this video?
Not much. They showed a little bit of footage from the trailer that I think is already released, so it's not like new footage, but he was basically talking about how they are still working on Light No Fire, and they're making all these advancements, and they're able to basically go back to No Man's Sky and add them in No Man's Sky as well. And so basically I feel like we get these little previews of what's coming, at least like visually and things like that, with terrain and stuff in Light No Fire in No Man's Sky. So every time they add like a new feature or some sort of update to No Man's Sky, you're sort of seeing a preview of what's to come in Light No Fire, which is kind of cool. But I wish they would talk more about it. I want to know more about Light No Fire. But in the meantime, they just keep adding on and keep improving and keep updating No Man's Sky, which is very cool because I do love a sci-fi like exploration game. And so I kind of hope that even once they release Light No Fire, they don't just abandon No Man's Sky. So I guess we'll see.
I bet they won't. I bet it'll keep going.
Yeah. But I mean, this update looks crazy. Just thinking about how they visually updated it and everything. And
the lighting does look crazy in this trailer.
And I want to check out that new living ship. I don't have a living ship in my collection. That was another thing. They expanded your inventory of ships. I think before you could only have like 12 maybe. And they've made it so you could basically, you sort of archive them. So like you go to your freighter and you're like, okay, I have these ships available to me right now, and I can summon them when I'm out on a planet if I want. Let me like stow this one away, and then I'll have an open slot to add a new ship. And then I think you would have to like swap them, and if you sort of stow it away and sort of archive it, you still have it, but it's sort of not a part of your like regular summonable ships until you go back and swap it out again. But you still have it, you just have sort of more room, and that's sort of how they're able to work around having a limited number of ships available. But so they have expanded your ship and multi-tool inventory in order to make it so that you can get more, which is great. So I like that feature as well. But yeah. Any chance you're gonna dip your toes back into No Man's Sky?
I'm not sure. I am, I think, more interested in Light No Fire. That footage, I'm watching the footage now and I think this is maybe the footage they released previously, but I really can't wrap my head around. We were talking about this before we started recording. I can't wrap my head around what the gameplay loop of this is going to be, because it's not going to be like No Man's Sky. I don't think it's not going to be collecting resources, but I don't think they've shown combat either yet. I mean, it seems like your character has a shield and a sword, and man, there's like wild, like giant, like people all around. Like there's a scene where like you're walking into this like throne room, and there's a huge guy on a throne, and then later you're walking through this like outside environment, and there's a huge, just like Goliath thing just in the background. And I don't know if you're interacting with those people, if they're quest givers. I don't know what a quest would look like. I'm so curious to know what the gameplay loop, because I mean, it's once you play No Man's Sky for a while, you get it. Like, okay, you're getting resources, you're like building up these things. You can make a base, you can just explore, you can get a freighter, but none of those things look like they're transferable to Light No Fire, so I really don't know what the gameplay is going to be.
Yeah, and I really hope that with Light No Fire, they've really done a lot to sort of expand on like storytelling and quest structure and all of that, and to make it more interesting and more dynamic than in No Man's Sky. Like it is interesting, like the story that they tell and some of those stories and all of that, but like one feature of No Man's Sky's universe is you're like learning the different languages of the different factions out there, and you don't know them at first. And so when you talk to someone, you don't really understand what they're saying. And it takes a while for you to like start learning words to be able to communicate and stuff like that. And so it does feel like their quest design and conversations and stuff like that is a little lacking, for lack of a better term. But even though they do so much else really, really good in No Man's Sky, that I end up enjoying it, and it doesn't bother me that much that like it doesn't sort of have that traditional conversation like dialogue that you get in other like, you know, like an open world RPG or something like that. And you don't get that style of quest either. I kind of hope that they have really refined how they do all of that with Light No Fire. But I guess
I could see them putting that language thing in, because it seems like there's a bunch of different playable races. There's like the rabbit race. So I could see them being that could be an aspect of Light No Fire.
Yeah, they could do it similarly. I a little bit wonder how much of it is going to be like just like a skin over top of like a very similar style and structured game, but instead of it being like a sci-fi space exploration, it's just like you have one giant planet that is sort of yours to explore. So I'm very curious, because you see that a lot when a developer has like a hit game. I feel like you see it more maybe on mobile than you do on like console and PC, but there will be like, this is the sci-fi version of our RPG that we've made. This is the fantasy version, but it's more or less the same game. It's just got a different skin on it. I hope it's not that, but I guess we'll find out.
Well, speaking of sci-fi exploration games, probably the gold standard is Mass Effect.
It's true, and there was some weird news where it sounds like the Bioware has laid off a whole bunch of the Dragon Age developers, which I a little bit expected to happen. I feel like Dragon Age The Veilguard is basically their version of Mass Effect Andromeda, where it just like didn't do well, wasn't that well liked, and because of that,
or Anthem.
I mean, it's not as bad as Anthem. I feel like there are degrees of failure, and Anthem is probably worse off than Andromeda. But it failed enough that they have basically laid off a whole bunch of the staff. Like the director left supposedly of their own volition, although there's a lot of rumors that they were forced out. But you've got the writing team, it sounds like, for Veilguard has basically all been let go, and I don't know how many others, but BioWare put out this weird message where they were like, yeah, we got the right number of people and the right number of roles to work on Mass Effect. We're good. We don't need these people. And so, yeah, it initially sounded like they were restructuring and moving a bunch of people around within EA. So like they were moving some people to EA Motive. And I think maybe that did happen, but on top of that, they have also just like laid off a bunch of the Dragon Age Veilguard team. And EA did admit that Veilguard failed to meet the sales expectation by like 50%. So it was a massive flop, I think, if you go by those numbers. And so, yeah, layoffs, departures, not good times for BioWare, I suppose. But I think that game was not good. So if you let some of those people go, especially the story team, then I'm not upset. Maybe it's going to make the Mass Effect game not be dragged down by whatever they were doing with Dragon Age, because nobody wanted what they brought with Veilguard, myself included. I was not interested in that game, so I don't want them to like. I think after that game came out, I was like, I used to be afraid that BioWare would get shut down before they could make another Mass Effect. And after seeing that game and being worried that that's what they were going to do with Mass Effect, I was a little bit afraid that they would not get shut down before they had a chance to, make another Mass Effect. Because I think it ruins the legacy. And it's a thing that we've talked about a lot where, if you remove enough pieces of the ship and replace them with other pieces, is it still the same ship? BioWare is not the same BioWare it was back in the heyday when they were making, the Mass Effect trilogy and the first few Dragon Age games. And so it's just a different team now, and so you can't expect the same thing. I still have a little bit of hope that maybe they will right the ship and that Mass Effect 5 or whatever they call it ends up being great. But I don't know, given the current climate of the games industry and BioWare in general, that hope is dwindling fast, basically. I don't know.
Do you think it'll be this generation, or do you think it's going to be next generation?
That is a good question. I suspect next generation because from the sound of it, the most recent info is that they aren't even in like full production yet. And that's wild. Partially why they let some of the Dragon Age people go was because they were shifting focus from Dragon Age. Dragon Age did so poorly that they weren't going to do DLC for it, so they just needed to shift people to Mass Effect. And Mass Effect isn't far enough along yet to need like a huge staff team. And I think I a little bit wonder, like more generally speaking about the games industry is, are we finding that you don't need these massive like hundreds and hundreds of people to make a game, and you can sort of consolidate or make a smaller team that can still do it? Because I feel like the first 3 Mass Effect games probably didn't have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, developers working on it. Maybe it did, I don't know. But I feel like studios have ballooned in recent years, and that has maybe led to a lack of focus, and that has really hurt what games have come out. And so if you're able to downsize a little bit, I feel like this is what happened with Bungie as well, where Bungie just like ballooned so large it was just unsustainable anymore. But hopefully the next Mass Effect are you looking forward to the next Mass Effect?
I think so. I never played Andromeda, but 1, 2, and most of 3 I enjoyed. So I am willing to give it another chance. I'm so curious about what time period it's going to be set in, because we know Liara's in it, right?
Yeah, she was in the teaser trailer they did, so I feel like they will find a way to get her in the game.
So I don't know. I want to see more about it. I'll be curious to. I guess we'll talk about it when it comes out, but who knows when that's going to be.
Speaking of which, there was a video just the other day that a YouTuber called Legendary Drops did. I don't know if you've seen any of his videos. He does some pretty good sort of videos or essays just talking about stuff. And he did a video about how EA is falling apart. And this was like, I don't know if it was prophetic, but it was like just before this layoffs info came out. And he talked like more generally about how like sort of how or not the full legacy of BioWare, but like how they were really good up to a certain point, and he tried to track like how they sort of started falling apart and what sort of the decisions that were made that sort of led to the collapse we're seeing now and where they're at right now. Maybe I should link to this video, but it was really interesting to listen to because I was like, yeah, I remember all of this stuff because I followed EA for so long and BioWare specifically for so long. But I think it is worth thinking about some of those points in the broader perspective of the games industry, particularly Sony, because some of the points he made in that video had to do with like them moving more to live service and trying to make Anthem, trying to follow the trend of like Destiny and Destiny 2 and all of this stuff, and how that didn't work and was unsustainable and stuff like that. And now you're seeing with PlayStation, they announced like in a time that felt like we were moving beyond the like where we already knew that it was not going to work and was unsustainable, and they announced so many like live service projects, and now we're seeing them fail and flop and kill studios and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think it was an interesting video, so I'll link it in the show notes. But yeah, I think we need to return to single player stories. And
it's interesting you say that, Zach.
Yeah.
So there was an Xbox developer direct that showcased 4 games, and the one I want to talk about is they did a deep dive on Doom: The Dark Ages. And I don't know if they did it in the trailer or not, or if it was in the PR stuff, but no multiplayer for Doom: The Dark Ages, just a single player campaign.
Yeah, they had like multiplayer modes in past Doom games. And I don't think they were not designed to be like, you'll play it forever, like do daily and weekly activities and that kind of thing. It was just like a standard traditional old multiplayer mode. Yeah. And so I didn't mind that being in like Doom 2016 and Doom, what was the other one?
Eternal.
Yeah, Doom Eternal. But interesting that they're getting rid of it.
So they did this big, I almost said dark dive.
Dark dive.
It is kind of a dark dive.
It is.
They kind of split it up into 3 zones. They did a combat. What was it? Hold on. They did. Let me skip it. I've been looking through this whole video. I watched it as it happened. It is combat, exploration, and story. So the big takeaway from this is Doom Eternal, I kind of bounced off of, kind of literally, because a lot of that game was bouncing around. It's a very vertical game. You had the grappling hook. I believe I've gone on record as saying that I think Doom 2016 is a better version of Doom, because Doom Eternal kind of became too much to handle. You had your chainsaw for getting more ammo. You had, you could turn people into ice. I forget what that gave you. Or you could use your flamethrower, and I think that gave you armor. There's a lot of systems to juggle, and I felt like I was always like forgetting how to, or like not properly doing combat encounters. Yeah. Because there was just so much I had to keep track of. Whereas in 2016, it really was just like running and gunning, and sometimes use your chainsaw to get more ammo. Eternal, I think, turned the crank too much on here are more systems, and they're turning the crank back for Dark Ages.
Are they?
Yeah, they've said, I think, what was their, they had a kind of a catchphrase. So I think Doom 2016 was, I think, run and gun, and Doom Eternal was jump and shoot. And Doom, the Dark Ages, their tagline is stand and fight.
Yeah, I remember it being very vertical, Doom Eternal, because you had like a grappling hook and stuff like that, so you could really like move around the zone in interesting ways, which I kind of enjoyed. But I agree with your point that they did sort of. I remember when we were talking about it before it came out, you're like, it seems like a hat on a hat to just like.
Yeah, it's just too much. I don't need 2 different like shoulder mounted weapons that do different, like a fire and ice, and I have a chainsaw.
Yeah, so I think in general, more people agree that 2016 was like the better version of Doom, but I still kind of enjoyed Doom Eternal. But yeah, just watching this video, this gameplay overview, stand and fight does seem like an apt way of putting it, because it seems more melee focused.
That's what they want. They said they want you to feel like a tank in this one, a big iron tank. And they're taking inspiration from the original Doom, which the original Doom was kind of a lot of strafing. You would like kind of strafe around, and it was not, I mean, I don't even know if there was not a jump button in the original Doom, which you can jump in this, but you've got your shield, but the other melee things, you have 3 different melee. You've got an electrically charged gauntlet, a mace, and a kind of like kind of a flail kind of a thing. And according to them, they've taken the feedback on everything, like too complicated, like what button do I press type of thing. All of those melees are one button press. It's all contextual. And similarly, your shield, even though it can do a bunch of different things, is one button. So it is contextually can do a bunch of different things depending on the situation, but you're only ever going to be pressing one button to use your shield. So they're really, really streamlining it. I think taking the correct feedback from Doom Eternal, where I'm not going to have to constantly be remembering what to press. And I think that's all great. The other crazy thing they're changing is glory kills. In Doom and Doom Eternal, there are a bunch of different canned animations for glory kills, and they would change. And that was kind of part of the challenge, is like you would look at the challenges for each level, and they would say like perform this type of glory kill on this type of enemy, where you would have to like come at them from behind, and then you would do the glory kill. It would kind of stop down all of the action. You would do the glory kill, and then you kind of pop back into fighting. That's no longer the case in Doom: The Dark Ages. Now, glory kills are sort of just dynamic, and it basically just looks like it kind of slows down a little bit, and you either punch them or kick them, and they just sort of explode. So there's no longer canned animations where you're like ripping off an arm and jamming it in an eye or whatever, which I have mixed feelings on. I think the cool animations were cool, but they did also like break up the kind of frenetic action. But I like everything in this trailer. It does seem another wild thing about this trailer. This is the first Doom where they're having like super granular difficulty settings.
Yeah, I was just looking at that, and I was going to mention it because it seems like you can actually go in. So you have your difficulty level, but then you have modifiers, and so you can go in and change damage to player, damage to demons, enemy projectile speed, enemy aggression, parry window, days duration, game speed, and resource values.
The game speed is the craziest thing because they show a like side by side of what that means. So if you play at like 140, it's going to be it looks like Doom Eternal basically. But you can play at like 50% and it looks, I mean, it's not like slow motion or anything, but everything is moving slower, which I think is cool. I mean, it makes it look like classic Doom because everything was kind of slow in classic Doom.
Yeah.
A great feature, I think. They also kind of talked about the mech you're going to be driving in. I don't know. It's when they got to the exploration part of this trailer, I think you never played Last of Us Part 2, right?
No.
That was a primarily linear game, but there was an area that was totally open world. And so there was a part of that game where that like, level in quotes was just you being in an open world. And you can kind of tackle it however you want. And then eventually you progress the story. And it seems like that is also the case for Doom Eternal. There is a level where there's kind of a siege on, I guess like a fortress that's happening. And you're tasked with like going out into the battlefield. And they said this is the biggest map of any Doom game, and you sort of just go around this map. I don't think every level's like this. I think there's just this level, maybe 2 levels that are like, I don't know how many there are, but mainly it's a linear story. But this map specifically, you're kind of going around in this big open world and tackling things at your own pace. And there's like exploration things. It's not open world. It's not fully open world, but this level specifically is kind of
like an open zone.
An open zone. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Yeah, an open zone. Which is interesting. I don't know. I think that'll be cool, but I'm so used to these new Doom games being level based. I wonder how it will be.
Yeah, I'm curious as well. Yeah, I didn't, when we watched like the initial sort of teasers for this game, I didn't expect the shield to play such a major role in it.
Yeah.
But you are just like, you got your Captain America shield that has a chainsaw on the outside of it. And you throw it around and you can parry certain types of attacks that are coming at you that are like green or whatever.
It does it seems like you can zip to it as well. Like you throw it at some points and then you zip to it to cross gaps and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like the reverse of, how Captain America's shield can be like recalled or whatever with like I assume some sort of magnet or something like that. But this is like the reverse of that, where you can throw it into something and then pull yourself to it. Which a little bit it gives it that sort of Metroidvania style feel where you're like advancing even like movement mechanics. But then we get to later as something I had no idea was going to be in this game is the mechs. You have like the giant mech that you were just talking about, but they also show him flying around on like a dragon, basically.
Yeah, and they have said this is not going to be just one level. It's going to come back multiple times. So it's not just one sequence, which is cool, I think.
Yeah, something I was not expecting or predicting for this game, but it seems like it'll be fun to do.
Everything about this I am into. This will make me resubscribe to Game Pass for sure. And it's great that I will be able to just like pay for Game Pass for a couple months and play this. And
then drop it and then not have to buy the game at full price or whatever.
$80 or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of a bummer because I do like there's a special edition that's like $230 that comes with a cool like Doom guy statue, and I like that statue, but I don't want to pay $230 for
it. Some of these special editions are getting ridiculous where the price is too high. I thought about that with the Pirate Yakuza game that's coming out. They have like their own special edition, and I was like, well, the last Like a Dragon game was my game of the year. Should I like consider the special edition of this game? And then I looked at what they were offering and I was like, I don't even think it's worth it. I didn't want what was coming with the special edition. I think that it had like a statue or something like that. I was like, I don't care that much. So
you can pre-order Doom now, and they revealed at the very end of the trailer, the release date is May 15th. So it's coming up.
Yeah, coming pretty soon. Speaking of games that are coming soon, let's talk about what's coming out in February.
Yeah.
So I already mentioned Pirate Yakuza, which is the, I suppose, follow-up or a spin-off to Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is what it was called. But you're a pirate in Hawaii. So I assume it uses the same map or a very similar one. Which is how they were able to turn it out so quickly, but that's coming on the 21st. This is the game I'm most excited to play in February. But Monster Hunter Wilds also comes out like a week after that, which I'm very curious about. I don't know how into it I will get, or if I will, it'll be a game I end up watching. It depends on, I guess, how into Like a Dragon I end up being, but, the fact that it is a follow-up to Monster Hunter Worlds, and that was the game that got me hooked on that Monster Hunter formula for the first time, makes me think I should at least give it a shot. But
I think this is going to be a big one.
Yeah, I think so too, especially since, I don't know, I feel like when you get a big game early in the year where there's not a ton of like big competition for it, I feel like it can have legs. And so I think this might be that game for like the first half of the year. But anything else you're seeing on this list that is calling out to you?
Well, we were talking before we started recording about what our thoughts were on Civilization 7. I have a little bit of... I played a little bit of Civ 6 back in the day, and I didn't really play a ton of it. I had a group of friends who wanted to play it, and they seemed to have a good time, but I was kind of not as interested. But Civ 7 is coming out on February 11th.
Yeah, I think I'm curious about it because I think I can get into that kind of game. Like this is not a good example, but I did play a lot of the Civilization Revolution that was like a little bit dumbed down for consoles back in like the 360 generation. And I thought that was fun. And I have wanted, off and on, every now and then, I will think about jumping into one of these. They just seem like, they seem like a lot. You know, it seems sort of, if it's a genre that you haven't spent much time with, it can be overwhelming to sort of try to dip your toes into. But I am curious.
I equally am curious about that Avowed, which is coming out on the 18th, but I probably will not pick it up. I'm more curious to see what people think of it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't think I will play it, but I'm curious what the sort of reviews and what people have to say about it.
That Morsels game comes out on the 28th of February. That I think I will pick up.
I forgot about Morsels. That'll be interesting to see as well.
Nothing else is really jumping out at me, I don't think.
Yeah, there was nothing in January, so the fact that we've got multiple games in February to look forward to is kind of exciting. It feels like the first 2025 games for the year. So.
They did, speaking of 2025, they announced the date for Summer Games Fest.
Oh, did they?
Yes, it is. I was going to put this in the show notes. June 6th.
June 6th. The same day the Switch 2 is coming out. Oh no, that's not a rumor. I just made that up.
I do think June is not a terrible idea. I think May or June makes sense, but because when do they start their? They start their hands-on shortly after the May or the April 4th direct. So you never know.
Yeah, I just hope it's not gonna be like you have to wait till the fall.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case. Yeah.
So hopefully either like later in spring or early summer, but I guess we don't know.
I wonder, do you think they would do a classic treehouse at Summer Games Fest?
I hope they do. If they've got like new hardware and some launch titles to talk about, hopefully they do like a classic Nintendo treehouse style stream.
I would love to see it.
I would love to see it as well. I would probably watch it over and over again. Do you want to get into what we're playing, watching?
Zach, I have watched the entire first season and half of the second season of the hit Apple TV show Silo over the past couple of days.
Which one's this one?
Silo stars Rebecca Ferguson, and frankly, she lives in a silo.
Oh, yeah?
And it's pretty mysterious. I gotta say, it's based on a book series that apparently people like. I really have been enjoying it. I'm watching all S shows on Apple TV Plus.
How are you watching these? Do you have Apple TV?
It's not, my TV can do it.
Oh, you have like an Apple TV app on your TV?
Yeah, I mean it's in the Play Store.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's the music one that is not on Android, isn't it? There's one of them.
I don't know.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe it is on Android. I think for a time, one of those, or maybe even both of them, were like not on Android for some reason. Anyway, proceed.
I'm watching all S shows, so I'm watching Silo, Severance, and Slow Horses, all on Apple TV. And Severance also is amazing. It's doing its second season right now. Its third episode just aired on Friday. Very good. Probably my favorite thing I'm watching right now. But Silo is also good. The second season ended, I think, the week that Severance started. So I'm working my way through season 2, which has been great so far. And then I also, when I get done with Silo, I'll finish up the second season of Slow Horses, which I think there are like 4 or 5 seasons of that. And I have heard it dips in quality around like season 3 or 4, but then comes back at season 5. But I will, I guess, report back on that. But I'm loving it. It's great to watch good TV.
I just looked it up because I thought I was going crazy. The Apple TV app will work on Chromecast, but you can't use it on your phone if you have an Android phone.
Oh, interesting.
It's a weird thing like that. I don't understand, but So for me, I'm still playing Marvel Rivals. They're in like a new season right now, so there's a ton of stuff to unlock. I do wish that they would make it so that because they have like daily, weekly, and season long challenges that sort of unlock over time, and you have a certain amount of time to complete them. I don't get much time to play during the week, and so I usually will play it on the weekend, and so it's set up so that you are not necessarily gonna like marathon the game for hours and just knock everything out in like a day and then have everything unlocked, which I get. But also, if you only have like a day or two in the week to play, you run out of like those challenges to complete that gives you the sort of in-game currency to unlock the stuff for the season. And so I don't know. I feel a little shortchanged by the fact that you're not able to get more challenges to complete so that you can keep playing it on the day you do have available. But that's like I guess a minor complaint, because I think the game is still fun, and I probably am still unlocking it at a pace that will allow me to get everything unlocked before the season ends. But and they have like a weird sort of special game mode right now that's sort of their version of Lucio Ball, where it's like a soccer type of a thing where you have 3 characters that you can select and you're trying to go around and score goals and everything. I don't like it as well as Lucio Ball, but it is like, I guess, fun for a change of pace once in a while. And they have like some other unlocks tied to playing that mode. So there's a lot of stuff going on in that game right now, and more stuff coming. And the other thing I have played is Donkey Kong Country Returns HD on Switch.
How is it?
That came out in January. I think that's the only game from January that I've played. But it's fun. I mean, it's Donkey Kong Country. So if you like that sort of 2D side-scrolling platformer style game, I never had a Wii, so I never got to play it. I believe that was a Wii game, if I remember correctly, but ported to Switch. It is overpriced for what it is. There's no way around it. They should, if they could release Metroid Prime Remastered for $40, there's no reason they couldn't have charged $40 for this game. I think it is like a full price Switch game, basically.
That's wild.
Which does not make any sense to me at all, but it does not look like a Switch game. It looks like a remaster of an older game. So, and it looks fine, and it plays fine, but it's they definitely should have marked it down a little bit. But otherwise, if you like Donkey Kong Country games, I believe they are all on Switch now, between like Nintendo Online having the old SNES ones, and they had already ported Tropical Freeze, which I want to say was the Wii U one.
I think you're correct, yeah.
But yeah, now they have Returns HD on there. So I think they're all on there. And that means that supposedly with the next Switch, you'll have all the Donkey Kong Country games. And I wonder, they've got to do a new Donkey Kong of some sort on the next one. There was not an official Switch Donkey Kong Country game or a Donkey Kong game in general on the Switch this generation. They just ported old ones. So
same for Mario Kart.
Yeah, same for Mario Kart. So I mean, I a little bit wonder if they had originally intended for Mario Kart 9 to be a Switch game, and then it just got delayed, and they were like, okay, now it's a Switch 2 game. But yeah, there was that rumor that somebody was making a 3D Donkey Kong game, and I wonder if that will eventually get announced. But
maybe in April.
Maybe. It would be wild if like launch title / launch window was Metroid Prime 4, Mario Kart 9, and some 3D Donkey Kong game made by
that is a launch.
Super Mario Odyssey team.
Yeah.
Also, give us a 3D open world Mario game.
We need one.
Yeah. It's about time. It's beyond time for a new Mario game. And so somebody's working on that somewhere. We just have to wait to find out what it is.
I'll say this. I have still been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Balatro. I'm playing more Balatro than Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
But I'm liking both of them.
I really want to hear more about your time with Rebirth, so you got to make some progress.
I will probably have some progress by next week. I am no longer I'm in chapter 3, I think. So I'm making some progress, but I'll have much more in the coming weeks.
Good. I know, like, talking about Marvel Rivals again is not interesting, so I don't know. Hopefully we can get some of these new games from February out so that I can have something that's new and actually interesting to talk about. But I am enjoying Rivals when I do get to play it. But do you have any parting wisdom?
You know, I can't remember if I have said this before, but Balatro is just like a perfect game. And I can't remember if this has been my parting wisdom before, but I have to say it's not expensive and it's on everything. Yeah. And I just I think everyone should play it. I think every person should play it.
Yeah, even if you don't have a console or like a gaming PC, you can download it on your phone and it plays great there as well. And it is definitely worth what is it, like $10 maybe?
It's it's probably, I mean, it's always on sale too.
I'm just thinking about like the mobile port. I want to say
the mobile port is like
$10.
$11. Yeah, probably less than $10.
Yeah, so that one, definitely give it a shot there. But it's great. It's a great game that everyone should play if you have any interest whatsoever, because you've heard good things about it. Give it a shot.
That's my parting wisdom.
I have a parting podcast recommendation.
Oh.
2 of them, actually. So lately, I kind of like history stuff now and then. I get into different history shows, and Dan Carlin's doing episodes of his Hardcore History podcast on Alexander the Great.
Ooh.
And those have been interesting. And also another history-related podcast is called The Rest is History, by Tom Holland, who I think is not the actor, but a historian and writer named Tom Holland. And he and another guy who I don't know if he's also an author or not, but either way, they do The Rest is History, and they've been talking about the Roman Empire recently, or like the Rome. So it started out as a Roman Republic and eventually became a Roman Empire, and the story's wild. And so that's very interesting to hear about.
The only thing I know about Alexander the Great is his horse's name.
Yeah? Do you remember the name?
I believe it is Bucifer.
Bucifer?
Or no, hold on. Bucephalus.
Bucephalus. That sounds probably like an ancient Greek name for a horse. Anyway, it's been very interesting to listen to those. I've become a history buff over the last few weeks, listening to those, and I started watching the HBO Rome show. Based on
I heard that's really good.
It's been good so far. It's sort of their Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones came out.
Is it like the fall of Rome, or is it during the height of Rome?
So it is right as Julius Caesar is like sort of having a civil war with Pompey, and like so just before he is set to become the first emperor, like the first Caesar Augustus or whatever. And I assume, spoiler alert, he's going to get murdered, because that we all know that's what happens. But
yeah.
That's the part that's so crazy. Like, if you actually hear like the full story of Rome, so like it started out and there was this guy named Brutus who, like, somebody he knew, like some woman he knew, had gotten raped by some like king person, and so he led this rebellion to get rid of this king. And they're like, never again will Rome be ruled by a king. And so they set up the Republic. And of course, later on, Julius Caesar starts acting like a king. And so his descendant long down the line named Brutus, who's a friend of Julius Caesar, betrays him, and he and the Senate, they kill Julius Caesar. Like, crazy that like that many years later, just like from one descendant to the next, to sort of ensure that no person becomes a king, ends up murdering Julius Caesar. But as we know, that failed, and the next person, his heir, became the first Caesar Augustus, and so it became this long line of emperors with the Roman Empire. Truth is stranger than fiction. It turns out that could happen, just like a wild turn of events. But it's been very interesting to learn all about that. I don't think I've ever done like a deep dive on like Roman history before, but I just like, obviously everybody has heard some degree of like Roman history from classes at school and Gladiator, and Shakespeare had his Julius Caesar, but to actually like go through some of the history of it has been oddly fun. Maybe I'm becoming a boring old man who like reads history and listens to history podcasts, but that's my recommendation for this week, I guess. But
wow.
On that note, go ahead and follow this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and YouTube Music. That's my other recommendation. My other podcast recommendation is this one. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.